literally just arrived from the airport and will be leaving us in 2 hours. So give it up for Mr. Jason Yarusi.
Okay, we're in there. So I am on 2 hours of sleep, about 3 failed plane rides, and a bunch, about 7 cups of coffee, and protein bars. You're going to get all of it today. We are ready to go. So, a couple things before we get started. Who in here has no idea who I am? Great. We are going to do some learning today. Okay. I talk very fast, but if you listen quickly, you will be fine. I promise you that. And now that you've gotten another smile out of me, the people who do know me know I'm not known for my smiles. They don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to get going. All right. So today we're going to talk about Live 100, the Ekato principle. It's kind of what's 100 in Greek. And I found that we as people, we find our way in many aspects of life where maybe we're living 100 in our family. Maybe we're living 100 in our finances. But in our faith or our fitness or our health, maybe we're living at 50 or 60%. And at that moment, you find that over time, those things that we're not living at 100 at start bringing us back to our medium, start bringing us back away from our goal. And everything that we were 100 in can't keep up, can't take the narrative to continue to push forward until we find our way to live 100 in all aspects. And for me, I had that same problem. I was finding all ways to not be my best self. I was finding all ways to not to succeed, to not be my best person that I possibly could be. And for that, I had to build character by doing 3 steps. First, I had to break my habits. Next, I had to build the future I wanted to. And then I had to magnify that success. So, I wish I could say that path was just a straight line. Decided one day, the next thing happened, all of a sudden I'm living 100. But it's a journey. And each of us have that starting point to go from where we are to where we want to be. So, this is a conversation today. I'm going to have some slides up here. They're going to guide me. They're going to give some parts. But it's not a canned message here. It's me talking to you. And with that, the elicit of feedback is very important. Because we want to have a conversation together so we can all grow. So, growing up, everybody called me Yarusi, right? So, my last name is Yarusi. So, when you have something here that comes along and meets with you, let me hear a Yarusi. So, let's practice, okay? So, who here has just had an awesome event so far? Let me get a Yarusi. Yarusi! Perfect. Who here has had something that's just knocked you off your path, and no matter what you did, it just sidelined you from where you want to go and get a Yarusi? Yarusi. Okay, good. Hey, it's that easy. So, let's get going. I want to take you back about 15 years ago. I was standing on the west side of Manhattan, New York City. Hot August night, get this warm breeze, 3 in the morning. I'm standing there. I'm angry. I'm disjointed. Because I'm coming from a job that was running me. I was coming from this job that was basically in a path of everything I didn't want. But because I didn't know anything else, I felt I was stuck in that path. We've all been there. We've all had something that keeps us stuck, even though we don't know what the next path is, but we're fearful of anything ahead because sometimes success is fearful. And so we stay when we're uncomfortable. So I was working this bar, I was coming off, I was angry. My friends decided to ride down the West Side Highway, so it's a bike path going down. And I decided at that moment, no, angry, I'm just gonna ride across the west side of Manhattan to the east side. So I stormed off of my bike, I had this fixed gear bike, which only pedals in one way. For some reason, we had this little bike gang who was doing these fixed gear bikes, we couldn't really pedal backwards, we would pedal forward, right? And that's when I find myself in this transition where I'm going across avenue after avenue after avenue. It's like this magic trajectory where everywhere I go, the lights just continue to turn. Each green light, I just get more angry and angry and angry. So I find myself going on the 2nd Avenue. If you're on the 2nd Avenue, next thing I know, I catch this light out of the corner of my eye. Next thing I know, I'm flying through the air in the dark. And just 3 days earlier, I had come to a place where I had gone to get money. Over course, if anybody's ever bartended here, is that you serve a beer, maybe you get $1. Well, I had put together about $100,000 of cash, everything I had. And because I was living with a bunch of different roommates at various times in New York City, I didn't leave it there. I left it somewhere where I felt safe. So I went back those 3 nights earlier to get rent, right? I needed rent money for those next days. I go in that box, I open that box, and every dollar was gone. And if you can think about just $1 after a time, $100,000 plus, just to be gone, that seemed like it was going to take me decades to figure it out. So at that moment, everything was lost. And there was IOUs in there because the people taking it, they didn't steal it. They had their own issues with money. So they were trying to borrow, and they had the intention because they were trying to get their path right, to get themselves back. So they had the intention to pay it back. But at that moment, that was everything I knew. You had my tie to that money that was in that box. So fast forward back to that night, I wake up, pull myself off the ground, and that hot air had turned into liquid running down my face, which was blood. And as I stood up, this car pulls up and says, "Are you okay?" And at that time, my arms hanging down to my side, down to the ground, face bleeding right there. I hear these French kids on the corner of the street yelling at me with this French accent to get off the road. And he says, "Are you okay?" And I don't know where my reaction was. I don't think so. Well, he pulls up and takes off, and later put it together that that was the person who had hit me. But in that moment, no money, wrecked, on the side of a road here, kids pull me off as the storm of traffic that is 2nd Avenue and Miss in Manhattan storms down, to find myself in an ambulance. All I can think about is I have to get back to this job. This job is tying me to everything I don't want. That's the only thing I can do is get back to that job, because that's what it was. So I find myself to stitch up, get my wrist together, get a little cast on my arm, right? Stitches my head, you still see him today. To find myself back that night, the only thing I can think about is how can I get back to the job, because everything was tied to that job. So as I go, get back, I find a way that in a day, I'm back at this job. Working at a job that I can't find my way out of because I haven't put together any other process than the path I was on. I get home that night, and my girlfriend at the time had come home. She was traveling from work. She comes home from a drunken escapade, finds me that I had found my way after all this, back to this job, slams a book in my head because she just can't believe that I pull myself back to go in this position of everything I don't want, because she feels that that's the wherewithal of all my struggles. Now at that moment, this thought comes over to me to say, enough. And I did the only thing that I could put in logic. I grabbed my bulldog Jack, leashed him up, and walked out to them. Now, I wish I could stand here and tell you that that was the moment it all changed. I said, I'm going to live to 100, I'm good. But life doesn't work like that. I made a choice. I didn't know where I was going to go. All I know is that where I was not where I could stay. And with that, I came with the first steps to start living 100. Now, as we mentioned here, living 100, it doesn't have to mean the same to me to you. You have to find your own path, your own parallel universe of where you want to go in life. Because it's so easy to feel and fear where you want to go. But the first step to get yourself out of the journey is usually the comfort to get you on the path, and next thing you know, you find yourself exactly where you're meant to be. And with that, I've brought the Ekato principle, 3 steps to help you on your journey, to help you down your path to figure where you want to go. So, my name is Jason Yarusi. Done a lot of cool things over the course of the last decade or so. Opened and sold a brewery in New York City, opened various restaurants, continually tried to name them after my dog, even had a sushi and cider restaurant named after my Jack the Bulldog. I've run 18 marathons in a month, 2,500 miles in a year. I've done 100-mile races, 50-mile races, a bunch of ultra marathons. I've brought over $250 million in real estate, a couple thousand units at this time, mainly multifamily assets, a couple hundred storage units, developments of single-family homes, flipping, Airbnb, and a bunch of other narratives from there. And that said, I've had the luxury to bring together 7-figure multifamily, which teaches other like-minded investors how to buy multifamily as well. So as we talk today about break, build, and magnify, we're going to go through the separate patterns of how I evolved and how you can use this on your own journey. Because we as people, we find ourselves to say, well, what is it, and how is that other person doing it, but we forget to implement it ourselves. So I grew up in a nice household, a point where my childhood was its own destination. My parents constantly wanted to keep up with the Joneses, and they had their own financial struggles and just trying to figure it out. And when you come from a service job and you have bad habits, you have bad financial habits, it inhibits you on your growth. My parents faced foreclosure twice. They were constantly in a job. all they kept teaching me was that money was bad, wealth was bad, and that if you were wealthy, you had done something illegal, you had hurt someone, and you had done something in a way here. And you see, I got more smiles, guys, so you guys want to take pictures. But on that front, they had taught me the principles is that if you were wealthy, you were this word prima donna. I still today don't understand the context, but I got the reason, I got the feel of what it was. So as I grew up, right, my choices started to be dictated with what's been put into me. And so many times we don't know why, but we elicit feedback, we elicit advice from other people, we elicit the emotion from other people, and that becomes our narrative. They've never done it themselves, but somehow have the advice and the prowess to tell us where we stand, because that's what they think in their mind, but because we're young, or because we're receptive, we adapt our principles. So as we go through this here, your habits today become your tomorrow. What you're doing right now, even if it's small, even if it's just right in the wrong path, you don't see the effect it has now, but the ripple effect, right? The ripple effect of what it's creating for your future here is being set right now. So we find ways to put ourselves in this position where we create our own outcome by just making that wrong choice, just that one wrong choice. Just say it's not that bad, but you start, and then tomorrow it's a little bit more and a little bit more. You go on that path 1% at a time each and every day. You can either go to the positive or the negative. That's the journey that we each have to create for ourselves, is which way to go. So as a young kid going through these habits here, that's me on the left, is that I found my way reclusive. My dad, because of the struggles, I don't remember him talking from almost middle school till I left high school. And it was that we don't show emotion. We're Italian people, we don't show emotion at this point, but I didn't show emotion, right? It was just that point. So I was always the shy kid, the one who couldn't let myself out to talk to other people. Until I had this one moment here where at 13, I found this girl. It was that moment of my life here where I could talk to someone. I could come and have express, and someone could hear me, right? We all had that point where we just can't figure out how to express ourselves. And when you do, it's just magical. But then at 13, a couple months later, things got interesting. I grew up in a nice town. There wasn't a lot of crazy stuff. Even though we were pushing to be there, wasn't a lot of crazy activities that would happen. Well, at 13, my best friend, Ben, goes on vacation with his family to a lake. And at that moment, he's on the lake. His cousin borrows a boat from his uncle, runs the boat, hits Ben in the head, and Ben dies, sinks to the bottom of the lake. At 14, my friend that I'd grown up all my life, he takes a shotgun, turns it around, and blows his head off. At 15, my friend on the football team gets all drugged up, runs through a tree. At 17, after all this, I stand in the backyard and playing basketball with one outlet, and I have this friend quitting. My parents continued to go through this struggle. They started this addition that was like 27 years in, right? Well, we had this slope that would take you around to the back of the garage, and the first floor was actually up elevated about a story, and they had never put the porch on, but there was these French doors. I had this friend Quentin, he has these lifts, and he goes, woo, 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 come here, come here. And I walk inside, no one can talk to me. My mom tells me I need to stay there until somebody mad was going to come. The minister comes just to tell me that my girlfriend was killed in a car accident. And at that moment, my reactions become who I end up being. So I have this time in my life here where I'm told not to have emotion, and I can no longer find emotion. I remember sitting there at this funeral, front row. I'm sitting there with my girlfriend's parents, and all I can think is that I'm supposed to cry, I'm supposed to cry. People look at me, I'm supposed to cry, I'm supposed to cry. And when you know you're supposed to be doing something, you feel like everybody's watching you, you can't do it. And every emotion I had ended up leaving me that day. And that's how I started into the next journey. So I had straight A's during school, just kind of did just what I did. And going that I was supposed to be going to college, no ambition, no emotion. Didn't even apply for college. I was like applying for like junior colleges, and ended up somebody, I was playing football, and some coach said, you should come play football here. And I agreed to go to that school. I didn't even know what state it was in, but I said, I'll go here. So I just ended up going to this school. So when I got there, I just started doing things that I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, because everything I was doing, I was afraid something would be taken away from me. Because at each point, something had been taken away from me. So I go through school, no ambitions. I find my major by a friend's mom says, well, you're good at math, do business, and business people do finance, so I got a finance degree. Just kind of was like, okay. But I left there because I had no idea why I got that degree. I didn't go into finance. I moved into New York City and just started doing a lot of other things, none of which had a purpose. And what you find is that your greatest tragedy is losing your purpose. And as we grow and as we evolve here, it's so easy for us to take the moment of time as it is and just forget that this is becoming our purpose, because each day becomes the next, right? We get up, we get ready, we rush to work, we eat something for work, we get stuck in traffic, we go to work, we say, oh man, I'm never doing this again. You're stuck in traffic, you go home to Netflix, you say, oh, wake up the next day, back at it again, 19 years later. Because that becomes our purpose, because that becomes our use case for where we are. And as we do that, there has to be a decision. So I started doing a bunch of things. I started bartending, somehow did some magazines, just started doing a bunch of random things, none of which I had any idea what I was doing. I just started doing stuff. I had more hair. But in that front, it was the path I was on, because it was the only path I knew. I just said, this is what I was doing. Oh, someone was doing this, I'll go do that. But there was no path, there was no future. It was just a revolving door of activities that were creating no future. You become your choices. And I was becoming my choices. I had bad habits. I was not responsible for myself. I was not accountable for myself. I was not taking a path forward. I was just living where I was. Until I found a reason to succeed. And that was a moment in time when something comes into your life that you choose. I wish to say that we met this day. We actually met in 2003. We didn't become a couple until 2011. So just because it's in front of you doesn't make sure you realize that it's actually something that should be in your life. She was on her own form journey of just various relationships that just weren't on her journey. And it takes a moment, many times, for me to hear something 57 times before I actually listened to what was being said. And again, all along, my bulldog, Jack the Rhino, I call him, was accomplishing me on this mission of just doing things and trying to figure out what each day meant. However, sometimes when we're so far out there looking for a solution, we forget to understand that the solution we already have is what we need. We are looking for this outside thing. We're looking for this magical thing. We're looking for what you said, or what you do, or what you do, or what that person does, or what I see on Instagram. If I just had that, I would be somebody else, or I would be what I want to be. But in every part of our life, we already have what we need. We already have what we want. It's just knowing that it's time to make the choice to get there. And so one day I said, enough. It was a moment that I had enough. I had gone through that job. I had come up this point. I had walked out of that apartment that night and said, that's it. And I didn't know what that meant, but I just knew I had to start breaking my patterns. I had to start breaking everything I do. So I started trying things. I opened up a brewery. I started doing construction projects. I did a short script and did a movie, right? I just started doing things to get outside of my pattern of bad habits and just saying the world is going to dictate my future. No, I'm going to take control. And each of us, as we're in here, have something that we need to break, and we know it. But today's the moment. Today's the moment that we just find that one thing we need to break. We need to break that pattern. Maybe it's a bad eating cycle. Maybe it's a bad conversation we continually have with ourselves. Maybe a poor relationship with our significant other. Whatever that pattern is. Maybe it's knowing that the path here is real estate. And this group has everything you need. It's time to take action. Because stop fearing your greatness. Stop fearing where you're meant to be. Stop fearing what you can be. It's so easy to say, you know what, that greatness is meant for somebody else. No, that greatness is meant for you. It's just your time to get up and take it. Because this is the way. As much as we don't believe in ourselves, this is the way. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say that, okay, make that choice, that it's going to be easy, we're just going to roll, right? Because it's not. It's not going to get here today, and we're just going to say we're going to go. But the evolution is the starting point right now. You are your own adversary. Each day, the biggest adversary I have is right here. Because I can get through the day, I can get up, I can say, I'm ready to go, I can go out there, I can crush the day, and the next day I say, I don't know about today, guys. How about tomorrow? How about tomorrow? Right? But the one choice that you have is decide that, well, tomorrow is not here, right now it's here. And that's the journey forward. It's the hardest thing to do. We're going to do it. We're going to do it each and every day. We're going to start breaking habits. You know, for me, I had this part that sometimes I was in my own way, so I created something else I could become. It was easier for me to be. So if you remember the Lee Buddy Lees, I was like, okay, I'm going to be Buddy Lees, a man of action. So I just started taking action. And if Jason didn't want to do what Buddy Lee would, sometimes that's all it takes is just saying, oh, okay, who's going to stand in my shoes if I'm not gonna, well, let's put someone else in those shoes and force them to that point. That becomes the point of building where you want to go. You start building the pieces of the puzzle one at a time. There's no rocket journey. You do one thing today, it's magnified. This is no Instagram success story. It is that today you start taking action. 5 years from now, every problem you had today, you can't remember because it's so minuscule along your path, so minuscule along your journey. So I started running races. My first race, a 50-mile race, 13,000 feet of elevation. I said, I got 2 goals. I will not get my feet wet, and I will run every uphill because I'm good at the uphills. Well, 4 miles in, it's too steep to run, it's too rocky. 5 miles in is the first 4 rivers cross. So, okay, new goal, no goal, let's just go, right? Because most of the time we spend all this time, we say, okay, I will get started when I find this perfect path and I put out this perfect plan, and when I start this perfect plan, then I'm gonna get going, then I'm gonna go, and everything's gonna be perfect, and we never get started because we can't get the perfect plan. Or we're like, hey, I got the perfect plan, day 1 happens, whoa, that's completely not part of my plan, and you stop. However, we just take 1 step, right? We just take 1 step. We find that that's all the path we need. Usually that 1 step we think is stepping off a 10-story building, right? That's when things happen. But the 1 step, they're off a curb. We just need to take the 1 step. That's all you need is take that 1 step. Take that 1 step out of the gate. Guess what? If it's not the right step, don't go that way again. If it is the right step, we need to say, okay, great, let's take another step. As I continue to evolve, I continue to find, I said, you can't lose what you don't earn. So instead of saying, I can't, well, how can I? What can I do? And started to have things that started to give me the prowess to say, there is no turning back. Because what am I going to teach him? What am I going to show him in my evolution? I'm going to say, today's not the day. Let's get up tomorrow. It's like a NyQuil commercial where, I'm not feeling well, so the baby's crying. I said, hey, I'll be back in the morning. I'm not feeling well. No, tonight's the night for me to go out and take action. Because I have now even another piece of my puzzle that I'm going to be accountable to. Be accountable to you. In most of our life, we expect everybody else to do what they say we're going to do. Hey, you said you'd be here on time. Hey, you said you were going to get that done. Hey, you said you were going to go out there and look for real estate leads. Hey, you were going to raise that money. But we wake up late, hit the snooze button. We don't eat right that day. We don't go to the gym. We didn't make our 6 real estate calls, right? We didn't do everything. We want everybody else to be accountable. We aren't accountable to ourselves. And I was not accountable to me. And if I can't be accountable to me, I cannot ask any of you to be accountable to me. And as we start that path, we understand that that's our biggest hurdle right there. We're our own adversary. Second, we're accountable to ourselves. Action is taken. Because now, there's no turning back. Because I'm accountable to myself. Nobody else knows it's done. I know it's not done. I've worked out 1,200 straight days. I got to the hotel at 1:30 in the morning. I got up 2:45 to work out. And I work out every day. That's what I do. Because I know I'm my worst enemy if I don't. It's not good for my family. I do. That's what I do. Every single day. Every single day. Because that's what I do. Don't feel good, work out. Ear hurts, don't care. Achilles hurts, don't care. That's what I do. Because I've set a stage where I'm accountable to myself. Nobody else knows it, but I'm there. And that's all that matters. So I started getting up at 4:32 a.m. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Just get up. That was it. Started changing. My wife and I started doing a podcast. We got to talk to other like-minded, awesome people like yourselves. Learning from you. Understanding what you're doing. Helping each other on the journey. And I welcomed each day as a new challenge. Instead of regretting and looking at, oh, I'm going to wake up today and what could happen, and saying, great, let's come on. What's in front of me? Because most times we say, wow, there's going to be something that stops us in the path. And just as things start going well, I start buying all this real estate. I buy a 94-unit apartment building. My dad, who I'm helping with this construction company, gets sued. I get roped into a lawsuit. My mom goes into the hospital. We had all the electrical lines in a building go out. We had to take some units out of the building. And I stood there that day. I had this guy tell me something. He says, well, Jason, this too shall pass. And all I could think of was Gandalf. I was like, Gandalf standing on a bridge saying, this too shall pass. So, okay, that's it. Life passes. Everything's moving. Took me about 3 weeks later to realize that Gandalf actually said, you shall not pass, but it doesn't matter at this time. The message was, this is going to pass. Bad things pass, good things pass. It's just the world evolves, everything changes. It's on a rotation. So you're either going to hope to stay and fight the friction or go with it. And when you say, okay, things are coming, great. What am I going to learn? Because every good story has a comeback. We don't want to be taxi driver number 4 in our own story. We want to be the hero. We want to be the person setting the narrative where we can go, because where our future lies is where we take it. You're your own comeback story. You can start right now. It's just taking a moment and saying, okay, enough's enough. And imagine every day was 75 and perfect. You're living on the beach eating Lay's potato chips. You wouldn't appreciate it. Because it's the same old. Same old. So when you have a bad day followed by a perfect day, you appreciate the perfect. You appreciate the light because of the dark. You appreciate the greatness that happens, right? Because of the poor things that have happened in your life, because you can understand where it's going, you can understand where you're meant to be. So don't wish for perfection. Understand the struggle allows you to accept the journey for what it is, to get to your results, to build who you want to be, to magnify the success you want. So I started running. I did a 100-mile race just out of my house one day. I started running, bringing my kids into it. I started doing affirmation with my kids. I started showing up for them because that is what I want. I am not going to live forever. I will not be remembered thousands of years from now, but how I set up the stages for my kids and how they react and how they treat others, that's what I'm going to be remembered for. That's going to stand through me even if my name's not mentioned. So as I started to set my actions, I started to set things for my kids that would set their path forward. And I began to live Ekato. One day at a time, built over decades, days, months, sometimes weeks, sometimes hours. I started living and magnifying my success. And with that, I ran a 100-mile race. Now you think about this, I run marathons and run those other things, but most times we've done a part of it where we want to go. And with that, we haven't done everything, so we're scared to go further. Well, running a bunch of marathons, 26.2 miles, is not like running 100 miles. And I was like, well, how am I going to prepare for this, right? A marathon, maybe you're running 20 miles before. Well, it's not like I'm going to go run 80 miles tomorrow and then maybe I'll see how it is, right? So I said, how am I going to do this? I'm just going to start showing up each and every day. I've run 6 miles. I started running 6 miles every day. So when I got to this race this day, if you think, and sometimes we think about the goal, if we think about, I'm going to run 100 miles today, I'm going to get myself scared from the ledge. But if I'm like, hey, I'm just going to run 1 mile. Can I do that? Yeah, I've done that before. Can I run? Okay, let's run 6 miles. So, okay, I'm going to start this race. Let me just get to the first aid station, 6 miles in. Okay, I did that. Okay. Let me just get to the next one. Okay, 12 miles in. Okay, okay, I've done that before. Let me get to the next one and the next one. Then maybe let me run to the bridge. Okay, I'm going to run 200 steps. Let me just do that. If I don't want to, let me just run 500 steps more. I'll just figure out where I'm going to get there. Let me just run to the tunnel and turn around and say, okay, I did that. Let me just see where I'm going to go. And then next thing you know, I'm at 100 miles. Conquered in a series of small steps at a time taken to 100 miles. And in all of our journeys, that's our goal. And our goal becomes the mile marker, because as we get to the goal, we realize that our minds and our abilities are so far past our goal that our goal that we feared up front is literally just a meeting point in the middle. And with that, I started to get in shape. I started to put my dog out there to help me buy houses, right? Because he just finds his way everywhere. Jackson, they're rocking houses. I started doing extra things to just set the narrative for myself and be accountable for me. And the results are building the standards you demand. And if you demand the standards of yourself, you're going to find that every result you want is the result you're going to get. So from that point, we started to buy multifamily properties, a 36-unit, 93-unit, 100-unit development, 29-unit, 76-unit, 90-unit, another 94-unit, 24-unit. We just started to buy multifamily because we learned the process from others, and we said, that instead of that just sounding good, we're going to start doing it. We start replicating the process of work for others, and just doing it in a way that can grow to where we want to go with all the steps that Samantha and Mike were just talking about. And with that, I realized that life had given me all that I needed. It was just my choice to say, okay, I got it. Let me go from there. And when you do that here, we as people find that the road ahead becomes the only road that you need. And instead of wanting something else, we find this is what I want, because this is all I needed all along. And as we moved to Tennessee from New Jersey 2 years ago, Jack was now 15. And anybody who's had dogs, you know, a bulldog typically lives to 7, maybe 8 years, right? So Jack would usually want to sleep in the bed, but one night, my beautiful wife, Peely, and I, we put Jack in the bed. And Peely wakes me up that next day, and Jackie passed. And it was that moment when 25 years of not having a tear, that I felt something on my face for the first time. I felt emotion, I felt a point, because I realized that Jack was there to see me on my path, to understanding the bad journey I was in. And now he had understood that I had made the choices to set my own path, and it was time for him to go. And with that, emotions become part of life, because now I can discover that I can be my own worth. And I no longer have to put it on others to understand what their worth is and hope mine comes along. Your greatest donation to the world will be living a life fueled by purpose. And you are in a room of action takers. You're in a room of people with high expectations that are going to meet high goals. Level each other up. Bring each other to that next level that you want to be in. Bring each other to where you're meant to be. Be 100.
Yaru.
Yaru. Yep. Break, build, and magnify your future. You won't regret this. No one gets to the end of their life and says, I wish I did less. You hear, I wish I did more. Today's the day. You don't need to wait for tomorrow, but that you can live with Ekato. I'm Jason Yarusi. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. If you want to talk more about what we do, we'll be here later. Feel free to schedule a call with us. We can do that front. I appreciate your time. Go out there and be your best self. I hope I served a purpose in you today to understand that you have a life in front of you that's meant to have high purposes and just taking that first step. Thank you.
Thank you.